And then we were talking earlier, and you know this is when Kirby and Coach DeBoer and Coach Saban. I mean, all three of those in Tuscaloosa at the same time. Can you imagine? Are you going to be there?
I will be. It's going to be interesting. I mean, we talked to Kirby today about.
Let me just interject this one thing. Good luck getting out of there. Are you going to spend the night?
We're staying in Birmingham.
There you go. You better have an Airbnb or somewhere because it's going to be a long ride.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a zoo there. No, I mean, I think that talking to Kirby today, it was interesting just hearing about, his relationship with Saban. And that's obviously every time, I've covered, Kirby's coached 6 of these Georgia-Alabama games. I've covered 5 of them, and every time that those two teams have met and Saban and Smart, and that has been the big storyline, and it still is, but obviously one of them won't be on the opposite sideline. And so I think that, this year it's interesting to see how is Georgia, Alabama, Smart, Saban, or is Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, Alabama? And I think it will just be, the G and the A and those two teams and those two programs, and what Saban was able to build, what DeBoer has been able to inherit and continue to, build. But I also think that, what Kirby has been able to build using that Saban model, it really creates a really fun, football game for fans to watch. And, it's certainly an interesting one for all of us to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested. We talked Jack and I earlier, we talked about when they do the game day picks and Saban, is he going to sit there, because he keeps saying everything runs through Georgia. Everything runs through Georgia. What's he going to do there in Tuscaloosa? And what do you think Corso is going to do? Is he going to put that long snout on there? Is he going to – can you imagine the game day?
It'll be interesting. I cannot see a world in which Nick Saban picks Georgia in front of Alabama fans.
I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be the most watched game day ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already going to feel awkward as it is for Coach Saban because, I mean, because he's covering his old team. He's in his own stomping grounds. It's going to, like, I compare.
He set it up. He's been everything goes through Georgia. He set it up himself. So.
Like for me, like it's got to feel a little bit awkward, like awkward, like seeing your ex-girlfriend at a pool party. Like you don't expect it, but you're just like, what do I do here, Scoob? This is gonna be weird.
Easy way out. Try to find that easy way out, but there is no easy way out on this one. I cannot wait to see it. I mean, I cannot wait. It's going to be a great game, and the bottom line is we'll see these two teams. Who knows? They may play again later on in the season, so who knows?
And especially in the 12-team playoff era, I mean, I think that there's a chance we see. These two teams play 2 or even 3 times. I mean, look, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen these two teams play multiple times in a single season, and it would not surprise me one bit if we see it multiple times this year.
Well, let me ask you this, because Jack and I talked about this earlier, and you can give your opinion. I mean, to me, end of the season, okay, so we're going to have the SEC championship game on, and so then that could be Alabama, Georgia again. And then now they'll pick the whatever, and Alabama, Georgia could wind up being in the top. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, and Georgia's got a couple of those games, given the fact that they play Texas in the regular season. They play Ole Miss in the regular season. They play Tennessee in the regular season. I think that there's a couple of those games, and it's really going to be interesting to see how it shakes out in this divisionless format, because we have been so accustomed to seeing Georgia and Alabama represent the East and the West, and you add in those 2 new teams and you get rid of the 2 divisions, all hell breaks loose.
Well, let me ask you this, because Jack and I talked about this. Do you think the SEC championship game is on the – do you think they're going to continue?
I don't know. I mean,
how many other conferences are going to play an extra game and then turn around and play a playoff.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. I mean, the entire idea of expanding the playoff. I mean, they can say what they want about this being, to get more fans and more programs involved. It's all about money. It's all about more money. More money, and getting rid of a conference championship game means less money. So to me, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I do think that there's going to have to be some changes made to the model for that. It's the College Football Playoff Committee, I think, is really, really, really going to have to reward these conference champions well. And I don't know, it's too difficult, in my opinion, to play that extra game and take that wear and tear. I'm not saying I want to see it gone, because we've all watched incredible SEC championship games over the years.
Well, let me say this: if it were me, commissioner, whatever you want to call them, and unless every other conference played a championship game and had to run that risk of getting hurt, getting players hurt, injuries, and then turn around having to play a first round playoff game, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the big money's in the playoffs,
and
not
the wear and tear.
So I wouldn't run that risk.
And the wear and tear that comes with playing an SEC championship game is probably a little bit more, when you're a Georgia playing in Alabama, or an Alabama playing a Texas, or a Texas playing an Ole Miss, these big heavy hitter programs full of heavy hitters and 5 stars, the toll that takes is a little bit more than it takes than, say Clemson against Louisville, or Oklahoma State against Kansas State,
or Boise State against.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's not equal. So I mean that's got to be, after this season. It's going to be a hard look, and I do not see. There's no point in playing conference championship games if you're going to have to turn around and play a first round playoff game the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well, we know
these little brainiacs know more than us. We'll see if they figure it out.
I see in your article where Kirby Smart was asked if he felt nostalgic in Tuscaloosa, and it's, quote, less now. I mean, it's just you move on. I think the last time we went, it was 4 or 5 years from the time we had lived there. It's so weird when you play there, because you're in and out. You're there and then you're gone. So it's just different, but you really focus on the players, what they have to do, what we have to do to execute. It takes away from that thing. There's a lot of people that are there in the organization that I'm close with and have a lot of respect for, but that's the case in a lot of these places in the SEC, unquote.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby was asked several questions about, no Nick Saban, going back to Tuscaloosa, a place that, as he pointed out in an earlier quote, look, this is where his kids were born. They lived 9 years there. They grew up there. And so, yes, he is, Georgia through and through. He's an alum of UGA and has so many ties to this state, but he's got a lot of ties to Alabama too. And Tuscaloosa is certainly a special place for him. I think going back in 2020, first time coaching at Bryant-Denny Stadium on the opposite sideline and being in that opposite different locker room, I think that was probably the first time that he felt it. But like he said, and that was a big one too. I mean, that was number 2 versus number 3 in the country. And, a lot of high hopes for that season for UGA. But I think also, as he pointed out, that game was just weird because of it being a COVID season and limited crowd and, just weird. It's going to be weird. I mean, he's going to have emotions. He's going to have thoughts as he goes back into a place that he's so familiar with. There's no avoiding that. I think that Nick Saban not being on that other sideline probably helps reduce those thoughts and emotions a little bit because I think in the 6 matchups we saw between Smart and Saban, I would say sometimes he had a tendency to overthink things a little bit. And I think that, the stadium is cool and all, and he's going to have some emotions there. But I think that once the ball is put in play, it's another football game for him. And, he's not having to coach against somebody and think about what they're doing. What would he do to counter that? And so, he's not having to make an emotional decision on that front.